All right, so I can't believe it's already November. I hope you all saw my silly joke at the beginning of the email to remind you all to be here, and happy November. It's my favorite month, so this should be good. Here we go. So what is the Minnesota Safe Route to School Network? We are approximately 240 dedicated professionals from organizations and agencies that are advancing safe routes to school in Minnesota, build skills in Minnesota communities to successfully implement safe routes to school, supporting partnerships between state and local agencies, municipalities, and advocacy organizations, and advocating for policy changes to support walking and biking to schools and improvements to the built environment, and makes Minnesota a state where all students, no matter their race, ethnicity, income level, age, ability, or geographic location, can walk and bicycle in routes that are safe, comfortable, and convenient. And all of that is important because to be able to walk and bike safely makes health, learning, communities, and independence better for all of us. So today, you've all been officially welcomed. Welcome. Good morning. Now we're going to, today is all about school siting. So I'm going to kick it over to Kelly Corbin from MnDOT, who's going to give a MnDOT update, and Angela Olson and CJ Linder are going to talk about Walk Bike Fun. We're going to hear a lot about school siting from Kelly, and then we're going to launch into a Q&A and group discussion about that. So with that, I will kick it over to Kelly, who...
Sounds good. I'll get my screen shared here.
Awesome. I think I'm still sharing. So there we go.
Are we seeing it? Okay, I see thumbs up. Awesome, awesome. Well, good morning, everyone. It is a very different Safe Routes world from our last month. A lot has happened. Many of you have maybe seen the emails or are not on social media, but Dave Cowan has left the agency and is moving on to a new role with the National Safe Routes Partnership. So he will be supporting Safe Routes to School across the country again. He's actually going back to the partnership. He'd been there before, and we'll be doing some consulting and technical assistance. So we might still see him with our Safe Routes to School work. We're not sure. He's still going to live in South Minneapolis. So I'm sure you'll bump into him at events, but he just wanted to pass on how much he loved this role over the past 8 years and was so thankful for all the work that all of you are doing in your local, regional, and state levels to build this program to be one of the best in the country. And then sharing this photo, this was, he's a bike commutes all the time. And this was him biking his daughter's birthday party to go to an event. So anything can happen on two wheels, even a birthday party. If you want to connect with Dave to send him any well wishes or anything like that, you can find him on LinkedIn. So you can connect with him on LinkedIn, so you can follow him along. Otherwise, I believe his new email is live. It's dave@thesaferoutespartnership.org. What that means is I'm doing both of our roles for right now as we work on our transition. So if you have any grants or reporting or questions, just send everything my way. If it's been a couple days and you're still looking for an answer, I'm not offended if you want to just reach out and give me a gentle nudge. I'm getting the amount of two people's emails, so it's getting a little overwhelming, but we're making it through. So if any of you are in the metro area, Dave's having a little happy hour tonight from 3:30 to 6:30 at Lake Monster Brewery. Feel free to stop on over. Otherwise, reach out to him. But let's keep moving forward and talk about what this program is going to look like. So, we talked on the last call. It was Walk to School Day, and we had so many wonderful pictures that were submitted and heard great stories of a lot of remote drop-offs that folks were doing or trying out walking school buses. And so that was really fun, and we can keep planning. So Winter Walk to School Day, I believe it's going to be the 7th. on February 7th, the 7th annual Winter Walk to School Day. We have our website, our new website. If you haven't seen it, the Minnesota Resource Center looks different. And so this is the new Minnesota Resource Center. You can click there, and if you want to register for Winter Walk to School Day, since this is a Minnesota only thing, the registration is down here, and we will send you more bookmarks and reflective tags and stickers that you can send out or use for the students who are walking or biking during that day. We have all of our templates in multiple languages for you to be able to access. And then the Golden Snow Boot Award if you want to start thinking about that. So it's just a few months away. You can get planning and get registered. Otherwise, we haven't talked much about the Resource Center. If you want to find anything, you can look at news and events. This will be our e-news. If you want to find past things to share, you can click on any of our events, and this will take you to the page for templates. Otherwise, you can go to all the resources, and this is where you can search for things, and you will find everything that was on our past websites. It's just a lot easier because you can search for them. If you can't find things on here, of course, always reach out to me, and I'm happy to help you. But just wanted to make sure that you all were aware this is what the new website looks like. So if you have any bookmarks or things saved to the other website, that should all be taken down. So if you were looking for things, just make sure you are going to the mnsaferoutestoschool.org to find that. So Winter Walk to School Day is next up. Bike to School Day is May 8th. Put those on your calendar and start planning. We talked about this last time. We had the governor's proclamation for Walk to School Day. We had, I think, close to 190 schools after everything was said and done. But I wanted to share the photo contest winner. Our photo contest winner here was from the New Ulm Public Schools and Bree. We appreciate all the work and the little story that she shared as well. So Ellen, I believe, is going to be dropping some links for me today while I'm presenting. She will drop the link that you can read the full story to learn more about that. Be good. Another opportunity, if you want to nominate your city, your county, your partners, we are trying to help find a Minnesota award nominee for the Vision Zero for Youth Leadership Award. So if you have students who have been active in bike education or student council that has helped plan your Walk to School Day event, please consider nominating them. This would be a great opportunity to give them some acknowledgement for all the work that they're doing and help inspire others to do some of this good work too. And I'm going to pause for a second and see if Angela is on, or CJ, if you want to talk about the two BikeMN slides.
Hi, yeah, happy to. Hi, everyone. I'm Angela Olson. I am the Deputy Director and Education Director at the Bicycle Alliance of Minnesota. I am happy to talk about some upcoming things that we're doing at BikeMN. Even though winter is knocking on our door, we're still doing Walk Bike Fun trainings, our teacher curriculum training program that we do. We just did one yesterday on Halloween in St. Paul. That was really great. We're going up to Two Harbors. So we'll be doing a Walk Bike Fun training up there on the 16th. And then we're actually sticking around for another day to do what we're calling a mini session to prepare them for their bicycle friendly community applications. We're going to do like a mini bicycle friendly workshop or bicycle community workshop with them. So those are some opportunities that you can participate in if you're in the region at all and you want to travel to Two Harbors to the high school and hang out with us and learn about the curriculum. As you might know, this is the newest version of the curriculum. It's been updated for grades K through 8. And then the other exciting thing is that our online training portion, which is also known as the Part 1 training for Walk Bike Fun, has been updated to match the updated curriculum. It's still a mix of some older videos and some newer videos, but we've redone all of the quizzes. We've gone for a more kind of open-ended discussion forum. So even if you don't have a plan right now to take the Part 2 and you want to check out Part 1 just to get more information, it's asynchronous. You can do it at your own pace. You can start it, stop it, leave it, come back to it. But I'm pretty proud of the way it turned out, and I think it's a really useful way to celebrate and learn and build that kind of base knowledge of biking and pedestrian safety. Plus, there are some really cute videos of my colleague CJ playing with some toy cars and bikes. So, you know, what else could you need? Just as a reminder for our Walk Bike Fun trainings, it's about 8 hours total, about 2 hours online and about 6 hours in person. It's usually myself and CJ that come, or one of our other colleagues. Teachers get continuing education units. We feed everyone lunch, and we also have money to cover the cost of substitute teachers. So if your school is like, there's no way, we have to pay for subs, we got you covered. And of course, as all of our programming is, it's totally free. So, and it looks like Ellen put in those links in the chat as well. Thank you very much. And yeah, the other thing is that the Bike Walk Awards are currently open for nominations. So the Bike Walk Awards this year, if you have someone in your community that is an advocate for making Minnesota a safer place to bike, walk, and roll, please feel free to nominate them using the link that Ellen put in the chat again. Thank you so much, Ellen. Nominations are due by the 31st, and we're going to announce them at our 15th anniversary party, which will be January 19th. I'm checking with my colleagues. Yes, January 19th. We'll be having an anniversary party at Uda Pills Brewing. It'll be super fun just to celebrate 15 years of advocacy and education happening in Minnesota. So you can come, hang out. There'll be a silent auction, and check out who won Best Dressed Advocate in the state. And then finally, our application to host sites in the spring is currently open on our Walk Bike Fun website. You have until middle of January to apply for that. I'll drop the link for that in the chat. I'll have a more fleshed out communication around that coming out to you in the next 2 weeks, probably after Give to the Max Day. But soft launch, it's open. So if you've got schools or coordinators in your region that are interested in being a host site for a Walk Bike Fun training, I'll drop the link to the application in the chat as well as my email. Oh, look at that. Wow, people are just doing my job for me. Thanks. CJ, my colleague, just put the link for the host site application in the chat. And then I'll put my email. It's just my name, Angela at BikeMN. If you have any questions, if some of these options don't quite fit, but you want help scheming about what would be beneficial for your community, let me know. We're really flexible. We can help make anything work. We're really here to do this service to provide training and education in a way that's going to be helpful. So I think that's it, unless there's any other questions or things I'm missing. But thanks.
Yeah, thanks, Angela. I appreciate it. I want to say I've started kind of going through this new part 1 virtual training. It's fun and easy to go through. If you're a new SHIP coordinator or you're trying to get a school on board and they kind of want to check it out, it's a really easy way to see what it's all about and get a feel for it without too much of a time commitment or burden. And then Angela's a blast. Reach out to her if you have questions. BikeMN is we contract with them to be our technical assistance provider for biking and walking education for safe routes to school. So please reach out to them. They have so many years of experience and knowledge to help you out. If you have a question, they've probably helped another community that's had that before. So just, reach out to Angela or CJ. It's such a great team over there. So excited about these spring trainings that are going to happen. And the awards are a great way to kind of give some recognition to those that you're working with, Educator of the Year, or if you have a champion who's been doing a lot of work. It's nice just to give them some public acknowledgement. I think BikeMN usually does some really great publicity too around the awards. So I do recommend that. Of course, if there's questions for Angela, you can drop them in the chat. I'll just keep moving on unless anything pops up. We've talked about this many times. I won't go through it too much, but the infrastructure grants are available for Safe Routes to School. Those letters of intent are due, I believe, after Thanksgiving. That's not a requirement, but it's highly suggested to be able to talk with the team to make sure you're moving in the right direction before you do the full application. If this year isn't a good year to apply, this infrastructure funding will be available next fall as well. So you can start work towards or planning towards that. If you are in the 80 greater Minnesota counties, the Transportation Alternatives Program infrastructure funding is available as well. So you can work with your RDCs or your area transportation partnerships with your MnDOT district office for that. Your engineers will know more about that as you partner with them. Reaching out to them and having a conversation about prioritizing projects, because TAP and the Safe Routes infrastructure is going to be open every fall. So you can start having, we want to go for this project and help them prioritize that based on the needs of schools, or they're based on the needs of your priority populations. Many of you are wondering, where the heck is this Safe Routes to School coordinator grant? It's still getting through our legal and chief counsel review right now. I do hope and think that we will have it out by the end of November. So that will come out. That will be open for a couple months to help fund a Safe Routes to School coordinator in your school district to help implement and advance your Safe Routes to School plans and initiatives. The Design Assistance Grant also just opened, formerly known as Engineering Studies. You do have to have a recent Safe Routes to School plan or be in the Safe Routes to School planning process right now to apply for this. And that's just so that all the data is collected for those consultants to help you create the exact engineering design plan, take some of that cost off of your partners so that when they apply for the infrastructure grant, everything is hopefully going to be covered. There are 2 more webinars coming up around design assistance. So Ellen dropped the link if you want to look at what those webinars are and attend a future one to see if it's right for you this year, or we do hope to offer that again next year if it's not right this year. And then what's coming up? Planning assistance and Boost are going to be opening actually early next winter, not in the spring. I want to make sure that we're able to get all of our contracts initiated before the end of the school year. So that does mean we kind of got to get going early in the winter. So as soon as I have some dates for you, we will probably share those in December, but that is coming. So you can start to have some of those conversations with your partners too about implementing non-infrastructure and your planning assistance. And building on your Safe Routes to School activities, the Active Transportation Planning Assistance is also open. I believe the last webinar was held yesterday, but you can always reach out to Will Wislow to learn more about this. Look at the information on the website. Again, if your community is not ready to apply this year, you can apply next year. That will be the 3rd and final year for the AT planning that we have scheduled right now. So that's some of the grant opportunities and things that are on the horizon. Let me just pause and see if there's any questions. Anyone got hands up? I'm gonna be so surprised if no one has any grant questions. We're gonna keep things moving. Already funded Boost grants. The Boost grants that were funded in the summer are still getting, some are still going through the contracting process. I believe we shared the awards to those Boost grants. Those will be 2 years long, and those are, we have about 7 of the 20, I think, that are rolling right now and more coming through. But we will have a next round of applications in a few months for those who want to do a 1-year project with Boost. Yeah, and Tina, feel free to reach out to me if you have any more questions about contracting with some of the transitions on our teams. We're juggling, I think I'm juggling like 40 contracts. So we're keeping things moving, but nudges are always good. All right, there's my email if you need anything. And we will get going. So we are going to talk about school siting today. This is something that comes up all the time, you know, where we can only make so many improvements around a school before we just kind of go, gosh, why was this school put in this location? It's so hard. And so as communities are starting to think about new schools or remodeling schools or a city that is expanding and adding in more elementary, middle, or high schools, we want to start having conversations about where could they be considering locations. And a lot of this really has to come at the front end because sometimes when this stuff gets made publicly, they already have 2 locations figured out and maybe some paperwork to kind of look and get those plans moving forward. And it's really hard to deter them or pull them back and reconsider. So these conversations are really good to be having right now with your SHIP leadership teams, with your planning commissions. We're talking about land use. If you have a Safe Routes to School committee, if you have your school wellness committee, this is something to be thinking about, planting seeds now. So if the conversation is really starting to take shape at a school, you are able to provide some resources related to school siting. So Ellen is going to be dropping our link for school siting, and I'm just going to show the webpage here. So everything that I'm talking about, this exact PowerPoint is already up on our website. It is all part of our Minnesota School Siting Meeting in a Box. This is something that we actually had created with consultant support. I think it's almost been a year. We just haven't been able to share it with you yet. So it includes this meeting in a box with this PowerPoint that I'll be going through, a guide that has more information about school siting or how to use this meeting in a box. It was developed in partnership with a lot of our local friends who have experience in this area, and another mini guide. So lots of resources are already available on this topic. If you want to learn more about the MDE guidelines or some of the work that's been done historically, you can. And then there's tons of national resources, as this is a topic that many states face. So I want you to take this time on the network call to be learning and growing. And so if that is totally paying attention and listening to my presentation that I'm about to jump in, do it. If you want to use this time to be looking through some of the links on the webpage, that's fine. I want you to be getting resource help. So if it's listening to me and clicking around on the website, go for it. I'm not offended. That's why I drop links all the time, because I know our schedules are busy. And if this is your time to do some professional development and learn and grow, however you want to use it, go for it. I think before we dive in too much, Julie, do you want to launch the poll? I think we just want to get a gauge of anyone who's been involved in school siting. All right, I think I can pull this over here for folks to see. All right, we got a lot of new to learning about school siting, or you haven't done too much work in this area yet. We've got a couple here that's been involved in it before. I think I saw Colin Harris on the call who helped develop this guide, so maybe that's him. Or it could be others. All right, good. Okay, so this is going to be more of a new topic area. Please be dropping questions in as I'm going. Make this helpful for you. So we will start to go through this and talk about kind of how did we get here with school siting? What is the trends for school siting moving forward? What are requirements in Minnesota? What is the process to get a new school built and sited? And how can we be helping in our communities? And we'll have some time for discussion as well. All right, so let's talk about those issues and challenges and those trade-offs with school siting. Talking about the big picture, most people agree that we want to see schools that are walkable, affordable, racially and economically diverse, and conveniently located that support quality education, vibrant neighborhoods, walking and biking, and community needs. It really truly is a community asset, and so having it closer to where people live, learn, work, and play makes it a lot easier for these to be multi-use facilities. But that's hard when this is what most of our schools look like. You can see the farmland on the bottom of that photo, a kind of a sprawling campus that's maybe one level. You can see a lot of different, we have a baseball field, we have tennis courts, we have a playground, we have a lot of ample green space. And then if you look at the context around the school, I think I see 3 or 4 churches, but not too many homes. So it's a school that was kind of built on the edge of town, not close to where people are living, making it a little bit more of a challenge to talk about safe routes to school, but also making the access to this building more challenging for folks who might not have a car or ability to get there if they just want to use the green space in the evenings or weekends, or it's their voting location or whatever it may be. We have some schools like this that might be more tucked into a city or a neighborhood, and you can see it tends to look a little bit more historic because that's how we used to build these schools, beautiful additions to our communities, close to people, where people worked, easy for staff to get to from their homes, super easy for parents to run over for the parent-teacher conferences after they fed the kiddos and then come back, because they're not traveling in a car for 30 minutes to get to the school. It's in a walkable, bikeable, or a quick distance. But we also have some schools like this where the community really wants to support some of the after-school activities. And so we have these really sprawling campuses with a lot of acreage, and building up on those kind of sports or after-school activities. And, you know, buying farmland where we can start with the elementary school, and then maybe we'll do another referendum to build the middle and high school. So all of our school campuses are kind of at one location, which can be convenient for some reasons, but can be challenging when we're talking about school transportation. Again, this is very common for those of us who are doing safe routes to school, or, you know, we are taking our kids to school, is these really, really long, convoluted lines of parent pickup when we can't have kids walk or bike because it is too far of a location. They don't want to be on the school bus for an hour. And so parents are waiting and queuing up for 45 minutes in line to pick their students up. This is stressful for parents. I love podcasts, but sitting in this line would still drive me crazy. You know, then we also have some of the air quality issues, especially with the growing number of students who have asthma. This is a lot of exhaust fumes that students are coming out of that school and getting exposed to. Also, as the stress level rises, as they creep up here, parents start to speed away or quickly, you know, make some poor driving choices as they're trying to get back on the roadway and get home quickly, to get dinner rolling, or just get home and get in their comfies if they want. So how can we look to make this better? How can this be part of the conversation when we're doing school siting, and not just talking about making this parent line a little better, but looking at a comprehensive school transportation plan? We've heard the statistic many times. In 1969, 45%, or nearly half, of students lived within a mile or less from their school. We still had, you know, students living on farmland in rural areas, but our schools were located in our communities, making it easier for students to walk or bike, for parents or caregivers to drop by, an easy commute for all the school staff. As many of our communities, our schools are one of our largest employers. Let's have it in a convenient location for our staff to consider active transportation as well for their wellness. But that's not the case. 20 years later, about a quarter of students, or half of what we used to have of students that are living there. That's because of school consolidation. That's because of remodeling and purchasing some of the more affordable farmland. And it's a trend that we'd like to start seeing a shift to, which is why we are talking about school siting. So let's talk about the benefits. This graph is from the National Highway Traffic Safety Association, and you can see what it looks like when students are a quarter of a mile from the school. The yellow is how many choose to walk or bike. They might not have busing, and so it might be their only way to get to school. And we can start to see the amount of students who are walking or biking less as they get further away from the school. As we put that school on the edge of town, we're starting to see more and more POV is personal occupant vehicle. So more parents or caregivers, maybe a few carpoolers dropping off, but not a lot of people riding the school bus. We're still seeing mostly single occupancy cars of a family. That's creating a lot of congestions on our roadways. That's a lot of danger, both for students walking and biking, but also for the parents who are in the cars. We've seen a lot of tragedies around the state of distracted driving after school, you know, trying to get those texts out and maybe rear end a bus or crash with another family that's trying to get home. So that 1 mile or less around where people live is a good area where we can see a nice mix of people walking and biking, using the school bus, and getting on carpools. And so it is really important to start having those conversations. And so many benefits. So many of you are from public health agencies, and we know how challenging it is to maybe expand recess or change the PE curriculum or find ways to integrate physical activity into the school day. The best way that we can do it is make their commute walking or biking. That's going to give them on average about 49 more minutes of physical activity a week if they're able to walk or bike, and can be really helpful. So, you know, part of Safe Routes to School is encouraging folks to walk or bike, but part of it is to put our schools in locations where it is easier for them to walk or bike. We talked a little bit about this, about all the idling. You know, this is not good for our students, but also transportation is one of the leading greenhouse gas emissions. And so during our peak arrival and dismissal times around schools, this can be an issue for students and impacting their ability to learn and not have any detrimental health impacts. Climate too, you know, that we're seeing a lot of changes across our state. So how can we look to mitigate transportation's impacts on climate and climate change? You know, having schools in a more central location will start to address that or be helpful in this for communities that are, you know, part of the Green Step Cities process, or, you know, really trying to take some strides on climate change. Maybe your community is doing a climate mitigation plan. Have you talked to them about including school siting as a component of that climate change mitigation plan? And then cost effectiveness. School buses are really expensive, and not just the bus, but having the driver. And we've also known getting school bus drivers is a challenge too. So, you know, just because we can address transportation with the yellow school buses, you know, that is going to be an ongoing cost for the school. That while the upfront cost might be lower to build the school and farmland, the annual long-term costs of transportation for the school might make that you know, less exciting or less compelling of a place to locate the school. So working with your communities to start to look at what would the school transportation cost be if we located our school in the edge of community or in between the two communities that the school serves, and what challenges might that bring. And that's not just for the school. Parents who are dropping their kids off and picking them up every day, I think the number out there is about $1,200 a year on gas and car maintenance costs to be able to do that. That's a lot of money when you're making minimum wage and making, you know, $20,000 to $22,000 a year, and you're spending $1,000 taking your kids to school rather than supporting them to walk, bike, or take the bus. Very, very expensive costs to maintain, and going to be more challenging moving forward. And even bus shortage, you know, getting access to a bus for your school can be challenging. Again, schools are a big asset to our community. These buildings can also be used for emergency centers and shelters. And a lot of our, for those of you who do public health emergency preparedness, or you partner with your Red Cross, you know, these are the shelters when, you know, rough things happen in their community where they might not be able to drive to the school as a shelter because there might be trees down or flooding, allowing people to be able to bike or walk to the shelter in lieu of their car, and having that closer in can make it a more supportive facility for those emergencies that are going on. We also talked about voting. You know, that is something that's happening every couple years for communities, and making it easy for all people to access those voting locations in a comfortable place that a school location is. So let's talk about what we're seeing in school construction here in Minnesota. School construction is often generating schools that are not walkable or friendly for safe routes. 75% of Minnesota parents said in one study, distance affected decisions to allow their children to walk or bike to school. Obviously, for further distance, that's a lot of intersections to cross, and that can really bring discomfort to parents. 70% of Minnesota principals said the distance was a major or moderate barrier to allowing and encouraging their students to walk or bike. Of course, these are things we know, but some statistics there that most people acknowledge, that distance and where our schools are located create transportation challenges in our communities. Our school construction just favors, the approval system favors those large minimum acreage requirements and requires justification for smaller or renovated sites. We'll talk a little bit more about that, but it is a challenge. And then as we build the school, then these schools are, reaching out to us for help with the arrival and dismissal conditions because they have a long parent queue. And we can provide some support, but we have to be able to have that walking and biking connection in there too. It's pretty hard to do a safe routes to school plan if all they want is the arrival dismissal to be looked at and addressed. So what is leading to these unwalkable and sprawling school siting trends in Minnesota? It's easier to build in the countryside. You can put whatever plan you have. If you're pulling a plan for a school that's been built elsewhere and reducing some costs that way, you can go ahead and do it. The land is cheaper. There's fewer constraints or challenges in building on these green fields. Avoid a lot of school districts, are feeling, they're building a school because they've outgrown their existing space. So coming off of that feeling, they're going to overcompensate and build a really big school so they don't have to deal with these tight conditions that maybe they've been experiencing for the last decade. And so they're kind of overcommitting the space that they need, thinking they might grow into it when they may or may not grow into it. And a lot of things, it's how things have been done in the past. Other schools are being built on the edge of towns or these massive campuses. They think that's going to help support enrollment because of those facilities, and it may or it may not. It is hard to change these things and have these conversations about school siting because we're changing the status quo. If this were easy, it would already be done. We'd already have our schools staying within our communities. So what is the role? What are some of the policies that might be leading towards these decisions? And let's talk about the Minnesota Department of Education school construction guidelines. This is what a lot of people kind of point to is we're going to build a school. We're talking with MDE, making sure that we're meeting all their requirements and their guidelines and getting their approval, going through their approval process to be able to build the school. I think what's important to understand is what MDE has out there. These are guidelines and recommendations. They are not mandatory. Those school acreage amounts, that's really for the sports and recreation fields. Those are recommendations. It is not something schools have to do. You can share green space and sporting facilities between the city's park and rec department and the school. So you're maximizing the use of those green spaces for activities for youth, minimizing the mowing costs of these sprawling green fields between the city park and rec and the school. A lot of opportunities there. So just know those MDE, they're not requirements, they're guidelines. Schools have the flexibility to remodel or build within the community. It does not have to have, I think, 14,000 acres or whatever it may be. It can be much smaller. That sounds too much. I don't know what the actual acreage is. Again, really thinking back to what are our priorities when we're talking school siting. We're looking at student health. We want to talk about air pollution and emissions and carbon emissions. Talk about loss of agricultural land. We're not getting new farmland, especially as climate is changing. Minnesota has some real precious, fabulous farmland that we don't want to take up with our sprawling communities, and talking about climate change. So school construction process in a nutshell: the school identifies need and interest in a new or renovated facility and assembles some type of site selection committee. This is where you want to be early in these discussions and be involved. Before they start picking out some sites, you're talking about school transportation. You're talking about this being a community facility that's easily accessible by parents and seniors and everybody in the community to utilize for all those things we talked about in the benefits section. Looking at alternative sites, what are those pre-design or design costs? What are those long-term annual costs of school transportation? Once this plan is done, it's submitted to the MDE commissioner for review and comment. If the review is positive, the proposal goes to the voters for a referendum and approval of financing. So if it's already up for the referendum, it's gone through some of this process and they have those school siting locations done. That's where it's going to be really challenging to try and make suggestions for other locations. So this work is about planting seeds and being involved early in the process with your stakeholders, so that you're not finding out about it when it gets to a referendum. You're able to make some influence earlier on. Again, back to those community leadership teams, your school wellness committee, having these relationships with city, planning, who might be getting some permits or are supporting the school district and looking for these facilities. Having a good relationship with school transportation that might be involved in looking at how the transportation would look for these new schools. That's where you can start to get in early. If you're just waiting for the referendum, it might be too late. And if the referendum's passed, you get to number 6, where that new construction is built. So moving forward, like I said, if it was easy, it'd already be done. This is challenging. This is really upstream public health and transportation and health equity improvement. We are thinking school siting is about student population and these acreage requirements and access and utilities and construction costs, but we also want to think about some of those other complexities, around that perfect location. Is what are the community needs and the community wants, and starting to pull in some of these other considerations for this committee on how this school location is really going to change our community. And do we want it to be changing in this way? Is it going to be an asset, or is it going to be creating more congestion? Is it going to be, reducing speeds on the county roadway that goes through the community, and it used to be 55 and now has to drop down to 45 or 40, and that's creating some consternation with folks who are looking to commute to work. So looking at those community values and bringing that in to part of the conversation. Okay. So what do those next steps look for these complicated decisions? Using our meeting toolkit and trying to have these conversations early and often. There's some exercises in there that you can run through with your partners to see what those values are, see what people would like with a new school, and get those factors weighed in. Once you start to have some good sites selected, or maybe you're working to just kind of remodel the existing building and space that you have to make it work for our modern schools, you can do that. Oops. So again, the school siting committee, there should be a lot of stakeholders in there. Getting yourself onto that from a Safe Routes to School perspective is really important, or a public health perspective, or a transportation planner experience, or a parent perspective. Schools really do want to hear from parents and have that local engagement. So you can start to look at some model school siting policies that are out there. Maybe that's an approach you want to use, and have a policy that is adopted by the school district. And maybe it's not something they're thinking about now, but you want to get that policy adopted so that you have that kind of sustainable upstream approach to this issue that many are facing. It could be something the PTA champions. It could be something that your school wellness committee champions. It could be something that SHIP champions. But it is something to be thinking. Otherwise, having these conversations and planting seeds, or sharing resources with your superintendent, your principals, your others, so they're aware of some of the other factors to think in for school siting. And I see there's a couple questions in there. I'm going to add, these are some of our discussion questions for our last 10 minutes, so you can start to think about them. I do see that CJ has kind of a question in there. One thing we have heard from a lot of folks is, what about if we build a new school, then we have this redevelopment that happens, and there's new subdivisions and new housing, and we want that economic impact. If you have a really great school district and you have a really vibrant community that's walkable and bikeable, you're probably going to see some new economic development activity happen with subdivisions anyways. It's just a matter of where they get placed. And so if the school is on the edge of the town, it might get built there. But that's not always the case that there's economic impact that follows those schools. We've heard that before. Yep. Tina's talking about some neighborhood schools, but still having parents pick up and drop off. And that's those other E's of the Safe Routes program, doing that encouragement, talking about some of those campaigns to encourage walking and biking more. We are not saying that kids who have choice for other modes need to walk or bike every day, but we want to make it safe and as easy and convenient as possible for students to make that choice, or for students who have to do it that way. Sarah Stewart has a great comment in here about renovation plans for existing school sites as well. It's definitely different in the metro area of St. Paul schools, where she is, where there's not as much farmland to build new schools on, and you are looking to remodel, so it can be done. That's a good quote there. And you can put stuff in the chat box, or we can just have a conversation here. If anyone wants to talk about any experience they've had around school siting, remodeling facilities, there were a few people in the poll who said they'd had that experience before. So I'll pause.
Kelly, let me
Anyone
just say, oh,
yeah,
you go ahead. Okay. I was just going to say, this is a fascinating topic. I haven't thought much about this before, but it seems so complex. I know that we have questions for the group. I have questions, but for sure, if anyone else has any thoughts or questions or additions, this is, wow. It just seems so complicated. There's so many different things to consider. So I really appreciated you laying all that out. I'll ask a question, if no one else is there any consideration when trying to get a school siting in an existing community? Are there buildings that exist already that have been like converted into schools, or are there like community centers that are often targeted, or is there like a combination of use for buildings, or is it typically like only new buildings up that are considered for siting?
I think when they're looking at the MnDOT guidelines for new school buildings, like a new school facility, that's where they're starting to see that acreage guidelines. I want to say requirements. Again, not a requirement. So if they're remodeling facilities, all it is just when they submit to the state, they're just making a case for why they chose that location. So a remodeled facility, they can talk about it. They can talk about where there's access to green spaces, or how those support sports and recreations in different ways. You know, and having that conversation of, should we be thinking about busing and transportation, busing 100% of our students to this sprawling school on the edge of town, or should we think about busing the 25% of students who participate in sports and recreation and after school activities to the sporting fields? What is going to be more cost effective for the school? I think there's different ways to frame it too. And then looking at tight budgets of schools and city park and rec departments, how can we like co-locate those facilities so we're saving on some of the maintenance costs, we're saving on some of the costs, and having those closer to where people are.
Awesome. Thank you. That's really helpful. Other questions from the group?
What other question, like what lingering questions do you have? What resources? Maybe you were able to click around on the website and we're looking at some of the resources that we've created. Is there something else you need? You can, what else would be helpful for you to have these conversations? You can always let me know. We're always hoping to make the resources you need and want, so you can reach out later too. This is such a hard topic because it's something that happens to communities, every year. It might be once every 10 years, but just like how we are trying to be thoughtful about our major roadway projects, because it's going to change the landscape of our communities for the next 50 years. We have schools that are 100 years old. So you are definitely making a long-term impact in your community when you are participating or creating policies to support kind of that infill development with our schools, and how our schools are going to either kind of sprawl or continue to support, you know, vibrant, walkable, bikeable, and thriving communities.
I'll ask another question.
Yeah.
Are there, so I can imagine, I mean, there are a lot of stakeholders in the room, bound to be a lot of like overlapping values, dreams. Do you see like common points of like contention or resistance in school siting discussions, or like in your discussions with folks, or general ones that come up a lot between competing visions?
Yeah, if anyone else has had conversations and want to share their local perspective, please chip in. One thing we do hear a lot is the confusion over requirements or guidelines on school acreage, you know, or thinking that that is the norm. And so, you know, for a superintendent or the school administration and school board to be thinking about, you know, creating and building a smaller school in the center of community. You know, maybe they're thinking about open enrollment. Oh man, what if the kids don't want to go here and they do want to go to that bigger school down the way that is, you know, busing 100% of kids. You know, some communities that might be, you know, a compelling piece. So really tricky conversations to be had for sure.
Awesome. I mean, not awesome that they're tricky, but helpful
Yeah.
to know the clarity. So I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Well, with just a couple minutes left, I think we'll just wrap discussion there. If you have any further questions, I'm sure Kelly, you can reach out to Kelly with those, or with, it looks like there's a lot of really, really awesome resources on the website too. I'll be sure to include those in the follow-up email. Thank you so much, Kelly, for presenting, and also to Angela for all those BikeMN resources at the top of the call. I won't share the screen because I'm just going to discuss it here, but upcoming for this network call, next month on December 7th, we're going to have our annual recap and survey results. In order to have survey results, we need survey responses. So please, 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 please take a couple minutes out of your day and give us feedback on this call so that we can discuss all things safe routes together and kind of recap at the end of the year. I just dropped the link in the chat. It will also be in the follow-up email. In January, the network call, I think, would fall on January 2nd, and we don't want to have a network call on January 2nd. So we are canceling it again this year in January, because we're hoping that you're enjoying the holiday season and, you know, the start of 2024. I can barely believe it. That's just wild. So no call in January, and then we'll be back to regularly scheduled programming in February of next year on the 1st with a TBD for the topic. But we will see you all in December on the 7th for annual recap and survey results. Please take the survey. You'll be getting a couple email reminders from me about it, but we'd love to have a lot of responses early on, so we can start looking at that data. So with that, thank you all again for being here today. Thanks for all the questions in the chat, and thank you to our presenters for such great content. And we'll give you back 90 seconds of your day. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.